Right, I'm hitting record. Welcome those of you that are already here, and folks are going to be joining us hopefully over the next couple minutes. Um, Pleased and proud to have you join us for this next in the Search Wizards series of continuing education and self-improvement. And we're very pleased to have with us today Ms. Maisha Cannon. It takes savvy and passion to excel in the recruiting journey. As a sourcing leader who thrives from learning and sharing, Maisha continues to balance creativity and precision. Maisha is committed to helping recruiters and sourcers work smarter by infusing practical creativity into their daily workflows. With that in mind, please welcome Maisha, and we're so pleased to have you with us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. Let's get started. So take a look at this quote. Can you guess the missing word? Hop into chat and enter your guesses. And the first correct answer will receive one of our 3 giveaways this hour. If you need a clue, there's 6 letters in this word. And if you need another clue, the word starts with an H. And it's related to what we'll be talking about today. I see a couple of correct guesses. The first one came from Search Wizards. Their name behind that Search Wizards moniker. I would love to jot your name down as our first winner. Yes, Mariah Watson. Awesome. Thank you, Mariah. You guessed correctly. I'll jot your name down. Thanks for playing. And I will let you know a little bit later how you can claim your prize. So what does this quote bring to mind for you? And have you heard similar sentiments from hiring managers over the years? For me, this quote is an eye-opening reminder of how difficult it can be to build healthy hiring manager relationships. A recent Deloitte study determined that the most influential predictor of recruiting performance outcomes is a strong relationship between the recruiter and hiring manager. In fact, this relationship is 4 times more influential than any other performance drivers. Have you ever wondered why some recruiters are able to build and maintain strong partnerships with their hiring managers, but for others, maybe even yourself, attempts at establishing trust and consistent communication seem to fall flat? Well, this morning or afternoon, depending on your time zone, we will unpack this complex working relationship and explore how building solid partnerships with hiring managers is key to leveraging data in an impactful way. Welcome to Show Me the Data, delivering impactful insights to hiring managers. Good morning, Search Wizards, or good afternoon. My name is Maisha Cannon, and I've been in human resources and recruiting since the 1900s. Yes, 1994 BG to be precise. That's before Google, if you can even imagine such a time. Now, over the years, I've worked as a recruiting coordinator, a full cycle recruiter, and a dedicated sourcer. And in my current role, I help recruiters and sourcers work smarter by infusing practical creativity into their daily workflows. I'm here with you today to share ideas about optimizing your hiring manager relationships and leveraging data in an impactful way. So over the next 50 minutes, my goal is to share information, engage you in conversation, and spark a transformation in the way you think about data. And you will leave equipped with resources and insights that will help you become an even better business partner. So here are 3 suggestions for maximizing our time together. First, ask questions. Anytime you need clarification, share your question in chat. And thank you, S. Buckland and Cindy, for already hopping in. I appreciate that. I'll keep an eye open for questions and I'll respond at the end of each section. Secondly, participate in chat. Our collective knowledge and experience far exceeds my own. And as I facilitate today's discussion, I'm also looking to learn from your insights, anecdotes, and wisdom. Lastly, be present. I've closed my emails, silenced my phones, and turned off all other buzzing devices. I'm a sourcer, not a surgeon, so whatever it is can wait an hour. I'm fully present here with you. And I hope that you too will make that decision to be fully present here with me. Now, in addition to the giveaways that I mentioned, at the end of our time together, you will receive a data swag bag, and it'll contain the slides from today's presentation, as well as the resources that I'll reference throughout our time together. If you're with me, let me see you in the participant panel and give me a green yes or a thumbs up. Make sure that we're all tracking together. Thank you, Dan, first one to respond. Excellent. Thanks, Larry. Thanks, Talise. Good morning. Thank you, admin, who I think is Mariah. Awesome. So quick note, I'll be using the term hiring manager pretty extensively during our conversation, but I encourage you to substitute hiring manager for the stakeholder that is most relevant to you. I like to call it the MVP, your most valued partner. Now, in my early days as a full cycle recruiter, before high-speed internet and smartphones, information was hard to come by. Some of you may recall when the average recruiter's desk looked like this. Now, back then, research lists were costly, contact information was hard to find, shouts out to the red Rolodex, and tapping into the total addressable market of any industry was a near impossible feat. Fortunately, the modern web has opened up a huge expanse of easily accessible information, and we now have access to thousands of bits and bytes of data at our fingertips every day. Now, this data is gathered from conversations with candidates, interactions on social media, or from a myriad of other on and offline sources. Now, although we are accessing information at astronomical rates, we don't always make the most of this data, especially with the business partners we interact with the most. And as we start to think about how we can use data to influence our hiring managers, I'd like to present you with 3 Ds to consider. First, we'll address the disconnect between hiring managers and recruiters. Then we'll discuss how we can start to perfect the delivery of data. And finally, we'll explore how we can collaborate more closely with hiring partners on our decision-making throughout the recruitment life cycle. So before we begin to effectively leverage data in our organizations, we need to address the elephant in the room. A study from iCIMS, the leading provider of applicant tracking systems and recruiting software, revealed that 80% of recruiters believe they have a high to very high understanding of the jobs they're recruiting for. In response to that same question, 61% of hiring managers say that recruiters, at best, have a low to moderate understanding of the jobs they're recruiting for. This means the majority of hiring managers that we support do not have great confidence that we understand the job that is critical to their team's success. Let's take a look at another data point from that same survey. 77% of hiring managers say that the recruiter's phone screening is inadequate. Phone screening? That's something I would consider to be fundamental to the work of a recruiter. I liken it to a pilot being able to accelerate to takeoff speed and lift the plane off the runway. No one who gets on a plane doubts the pilot's ability to get the plane off the ground. It's that elementary to the work pilots do. And yes, Cindy, I'm with you. That's a big ouch for us as recruiters. So likewise, this phone screening is an area where we ought to have our hiring teams full confidence. Yet 7 out of 10 hiring managers do not believe in our ability to simply talk to a candidate and assess their experience in relation to the open position. And for the record, that 8th hiring manager is only partially confident in our skills. So this is one example that illustrates the disconnect. And hopefully you agree that this disconnect is worth addressing. So hiring managers and recruiters share a common goal, and that's to find the best, qualified, interested, and available talent on the market. Yet barriers like the hiring manager's inability to clearly articulate their needs, or the recruiter's lack of specific domain knowledge. And unrealistic expectations from both sides can complicate our interactions. As I began to think about this topic of leveraging data, I did something that I hadn't done in my decade plus as a recruiter and sourcer. I asked my hiring managers this question. Now, granted, I had my own ideas about it, but I had never asked this question on a consistent basis. Now, many of the responses I received from hiring managers were in line with my expectations, but one answer in particular shocked me. I was most surprised by the hiring manager who said, "Who cares about data? Just fill my positions." Or in Jerry Maguire speak, "Show me the hires." Now, this response, of course, was an exception to the rule because the majority of hiring managers I surveyed do depend on data in their daily interactions. But asking that question directly revealed that this whole time that I've been recruiting, I've had an idea of what data hiring managers wanted to see. And in my mind, it was these things. But in fact, the data I collected revealed that my hiring managers' most valued variables actually related more to these items. Most interesting to me was this delta between sourced and active candidates in a variety of categories, including gender, race, and retention rates. I encourage you to conduct a similar informal survey to get a pulse on what your hiring manager's valued variables are. You may be surprised at what they value the most. So this existence of two distinct data sets, what I thought hiring managers wanted and what they actually want, only works to widen the disconnect. And that's because the data I was tracking, presenting, and attempting to leverage was not the data my hiring partners cared about. Have any of you experienced that? I'll clear the board here and you can hop into chat or into the participant panel if you've ever felt that disconnect in the data you were delivering. Now, some years ago, when I was still growing as a new recruiter, I received feedback from my talent acquisition director that one of my hiring managers felt like this. Now, for context, I was working remotely as a full cycle recruiter, and I didn't have a lot of face time with this hiring manager whose role required a lot of travel in the field. Now, our primary modes of communication back then were either on large conference calls or via email. And as I reflect, most of my emails to this hiring manager fell into one of two categories. I was either sending her resumes to review or following up on said resumes to get feedback and move the process along. Now, my TA director explained that this hiring manager didn't care for my communication style, especially via email. The hiring manager thought I was too direct. It was recommended that I spend time with the hiring manager in the field. So I made plans to meet her at a local facility where she'd be leading a quarterly meeting with her direct reports. So after sitting in on the team's meeting, I had the opportunity to present a short lightning talk about the recruiting outreach I was doing to help attract talent to their team. The day progressed, and after about a half a day on site with the hiring manager and her team, I returned to my home office and it was back to business as usual. Now, a few weeks later, my talent director was excited to tell me that this hiring manager, who was previously quite frustrated, was suddenly singing my praises. My director wanted to know what happened when I met with the hiring manager in the field, because whatever it was had changed her perception of me. It took me a while to realize, but I soon understood that before our in-person interaction, this hiring manager viewed me as all business all the time. In all of my communications with her, I led with data and I ended with data. My correspondence was professional and well-researched, but there was no personal connection. It was only after investing time outside of the framework of our normal recruiting discussions that we seemed to establish common ground. I learned through that experience that I needed to change my approach from all business all the time to people first, data second. And one way we can establish firm foundations with our hiring managers is by investing our time understanding their day to day operations, challenges, and areas of opportunity. Another successful technique I observed was during my time as a technical sourcer at LinkedIn. I had a colleague named Tarun who invested his time by embedding himself within the client group. So for 2 or 3 days out of the week, instead of sitting with the talent acquisition team, Tarun would sit in another building across campus with a team of software engineers whose hiring needs he supported. That meant that from having breakfast in the building cafe, participating in afternoon stand-ups, and even by making appearances at after-work happy hours, Tarun truly became an extension of his client group. Now, by availing himself to so many team-specific insights, Tarun consistently outperformed many of us who spent the majority of our days sitting with other sourcers, eating lunch and brainstorming with other sourcers, and recycling the same old sourcing ideas. Now, with that, it's time for our first 60-second share. Yes, the crowd is excited. So I'm going to give you a prompt, and I'll ask that everyone hop into chat for 60 seconds to share your thoughts. And as I mentioned, our collective knowledge and experience is far greater than my own. And so I want to take advantage of this unique time and space that we're sharing. I'm looking forward to hearing your responses to this statement. So I'll give you a few moments to think. And then I'd like you to just hop right into chat and share how you invest time with your hiring partners. And I'll give you a few seconds. I love that, S. Buckland. And tell me your first name, S, so I can call you by your first name. But yeah, building rapport. Sarah, thank you, Sarah. Getting down to business. That's such a good point. That's such a good point. Thank you. Who else has ideas? I know one way that I share or invest time with my hiring managers as a remotee is by celebrating special occasions. So one of my hiring managers just had twins. So I sent a welcome to the world gift to the twins. So can't be there, but can definitely connect on a personal level. I love that. Hey, Nathan, good morning. Having monthly or bi-monthly coffee, that's a good one. I really like that with various members of the team. That's such a good point. Not just the hiring manager, but also people on the team. That's a great point. Thank you for that. And then just understanding the nuances of the roles, as Mariah is suggesting, and understanding how success is measured. That's so important. Understanding their most important metrics for the quarter, for instance. Thank you for those. Well done. And keep those responses coming as you think of them. It'll be a great supplement for those who catch the replay. So as we're experiencing using Zoom, technology is a big piece of what we do as recruiters and sourcers. So here are a few tools that we can use to start helping us address the disconnect. As I put together this slide, I realized that none of these tools existed when I started recruiting. Now, there's one that I could have benefited from back in the day, which is the first icon there. It's called the IBM Tone Analyzer by IBM Watson. And it's a free sentiment analysis tool that checks the tone of your content and helps improve message effectiveness. So I could have certainly used that on my direct emails that I was sending back in the day. I also like to use SurveyMonkey to gather post-recruitment feedback from my hiring managers, and that's an anonymous survey. And then I'm sure some of you are using tools like Calendly for automated scheduling for your candidates. Why not include your Calendly link in your signature so that hiring managers know they can always easily find time on your calendar? And those last three resources, Eventbrite, Meetup, and 10 Times, are all free ways to find events of interest to your client group. And then you can share those events and also offer to attend the events with them. Spending time monthly or quarterly, even as Nathan and Cindy have suggested, can go a long way towards forging stronger bonds with your hiring managers. And you can even do some offline sourcing while you're at some of these events. Now, we've talked about addressing the disconnect. So let's move on to perfecting the delivery of data. And thanks to all of you who are active in the chat right now. I appreciate that. So hop into the participant panel and clap your hands. You'll just go right into panel, hover over more, and hit the hand clap like I've just done. If you've ever used data to challenge a hiring partner's assumptions. Wow, some of you have, good. Or even to reset a hiring manager's expectations using data. Good, Talise, data for the win. So recently, one of my hiring managers identified someone in her personal network for an analyst role on the team. And unexpectedly, this final candidate declined the offer. The hiring manager, now frantic, reached out to the vice president of talent and demanded that one recruiter be assigned solely to her open role because it needed to be filled in 3 weeks. Have any of you ever received requests like this? I call them convenience-driven rather than data-driven requests to fill a role by a certain date. Often the date is convenient for the hiring manager, but also completely arbitrary. It's familiar to you. Thank you, Cindy. I'm not the only one. And Katrina, I see your question. I'll definitely address that at the end of this section. Thanks for asking. So at my VP's request, my recruiting partner and I sat down with the hiring manager and we launched a strategy session or a kickoff meeting. That's the meeting formerly known as an intake meeting in my world. And while we did not accommodate the hiring manager's request for one dedicated recruiter, we did offer her sourcing. And I built a custom sourcing strategy for the position, including market research to aid in talent mapping. Now, one of the tools that I use to develop that strategy is the recruiting funnel calculator created by the great Glenn Cathy. Are you familiar with Glenn's site, Boolean Black Belt? It's such a fantastic resource. And so Glenn's calculator helps you determine a variety of metrics from submittal to hire ratio, and even the number of leads that you'll need to reach out to make a certain number of hires. So by using Glenn's calculator, this is what it looks like. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and this is the second tab of 2 tabs that lets me know as a sourcer some of the important metrics I'll need to consider. Using this, I was able to estimate how many leads we would need to identify to ultimately result in a hire. So the recruiter and I came prepared to share this data at the kickoff meeting, and the hiring manager was pleasantly surprised with our course of action. We did fill her analyst position, but it did not happen in 3 weeks. And Katrina, that first tool, the IBM Tone Analyzer, is absolutely free and it's web-based. So you don't have to download it. You'll go to the link that'll be in your swag bag and you'll just copy and paste your email and it'll kind of grade your verbiage and make recommendations right there. So great question. You don't have to download it, but it is a web-based tool. So as I'm determining what data is worth sharing with my hiring manager, I like to ask myself the guiding question. And that question is here. So in the pre-survey, 89% of you mentioned having to deliver very detailed reports each week, some automated, some manual, and often a mix. I encourage you to consider extracting the most relevant data and highlighting it for your hiring partners very simply and clearly. In some instances, I believe we may lose our hiring manager's interest before we can even start to leverage data because we give them TMI, too much information. Imagine being faced with this wall of data and being asked to synthesize it within an hour. This is an actual spreadsheet from a previous employer, and I won't embarrass them by telling you who, but yes, it's real. And this report was generated by the ATS, automated, and then every recruiter on my team would have to go in and make manual updates to their 25 to 30 open recs. Yes, ugly indeed, Katrina. Don't look at it too long. Your eyes may start to water. So then all of these recruiting updates would go to the unlucky recruiting coordinator whose job it was to piece it all together every other week. Now, in the pre-survey, some of you mentioned wondering if the data you're sending to hiring managers is even being reviewed. And I think this report drives that point home. Our hiring partners are human. They're juggling work from the field, they're checking email on the go, and they're in and out of meetings. The next time you have data to deliver, why not focus on making it digestible? Now, making data digestible doesn't have to be time consuming. It simply takes a little practical creativity. So let's take a look at a few examples. So this is a screenshot from LinkedIn Recruiter, which I believe 77% of you on the pre-survey were using as a tool day to day. And it's from a feature called LinkedIn Search Insights. And it can give you a quick glance of the market. So this is an easy to read screenshot that I can share with a recruiter or hiring manager to give them a pulse on what the market looks like. Yes, I love LinkedIn Insights too, Cindy. Definitely, it's a great additional feature they've added in the past couple of years. So here's an example of one of my biweekly emails that I send to some stakeholders. And you'll quickly see I'm using headers, sections, bold font, tables, hyperlinks, and even screenshots. It's a mix of elements that is going to make the email much more skimmable, especially if they're checking on a mobile device. Here, you see I'm using Talent Wall to display active candidates at different stages in the pipeline. And Talent Wall is a team-centric candidate management and visualization tool. Very easy on the eyes and allows you to see candidates in various stages of the process. And finally, here's another feature of LinkedIn. It's called LinkedIn Projects. And I'm using a tool called Loom to share the data with my hiring partners. Loom is a wonderful free tool for delivering data. Again, since I'm remote, I don't get a lot of face time. So this is a good way to bring the data to life. And I found this to be much more effective than sending an email with 10 hyperlinks and expecting the hiring manager to click out and give me feedback on each. You can also combine this LinkedIn project with the Ask for Review feature. How many of you are using that Ask for Review feature in LinkedIn? And that allows you to share your profiles with the hiring manager and they can rate them good, great, or ignore. So that's a really seamless way of getting feedback all within the system. All right, so it's time for our second giveaway. Let's get excited. Second giveaway. She's excited. Okay, so the person with the most interesting response to this next prompt is going to win a special sourcing related prize. All right, so here we go. I'm looking forward to seeing your response to this prompt. Okay. Hop into chat and share a time when you know that the data you delivered made an impact. And I'll start my 60-second timer here to make sure we stay on task. When did that data that you delivered make an impact and how did you know? For me, last week I was at a meeting with the hiring manager and I sensed that the data I delivered made an impact because he stopped talking and he started asking questions. I was like, wow, we've reached a turning point. He's actually asking now. So that lets me know that we're building a relationship and he sees me as a trusted partner. Has data delivery been so painful? No one's felt that they've made an impact? Oh my goodness. Well, hopefully some of these tips will help. I'll give you about 10 more seconds because I do have a prize I want to give away. Let's see. Yes, Nathan, that's a good one. When a hiring manager is suddenly opening up those basic requirements, that's absolutely right. Yep. You come into the intake and it's very strict. And then after a while, when they see what's on the market, they kind of open up a little bit. And then V, is it Marwi? Tell me your first name so I can pronounce it. Opening the hiring manager's eyes to the reality of the market. Yes, paying a lot higher than he thought. Such a good point. Such a good point. Often we recycle these job descriptions and these salary ranges, but the market has changed and we have very dynamic insights to kind of keep the hiring managers abreast with. Mary, thank you, Mary. Yes, that's a good one, Mariah. Increasing the rates based on market insight. Excellent. So I'm going to give this one to Nathan. Nathan Vance, you are the winner. I'm going to write your name down along with Mariah's, and I'll let you both know shortly how you can claim your prize. So thanks for participating. Good insights. Thank you all for contributing. So once you've exhausted the tools in your current toolkit, of course, LinkedIn Recruiter, Excel, and some of the other tools you're using, here are a few other tools that you can use to help deliver digestible data. So on the top row, you see Tableau Public, which is a free site that lets you convert spreadsheets to graphs. The second icon is, of course, Glenn Cathey's calculator. It's a free tool that'll be in your swag bag. Gyazo is a free tool that lets you build instant screenshots. So if you like to capture data for your hiring managers, this could be an easy way to do it. There is Talent Wall, which is a tool that I mentioned that is compatible right now only with the Greenhouse ATS. So if you're not using Greenhouse, Talent Wall won't help you yet, but it's a really great product. Canva is the free graphic design tool that I use to design all my decks. And then finally, Use Loom is that free screen recorder that helps you deliver face-to-face data with your hiring partners. All right. So we've talked about how we can address the disconnect and perfect the delivery. Let's hop into our last section, which is all about collaborating on decision-making. So the talent acquisition team at Netflix is rethinking what a successful recruiter hiring manager relationship looks like. They've reimagined this relationship as a consultative partnership rather than transactional order taking. And I've certainly felt like it was a transactional order taking relationship in past lives. So I was really excited to read about this. So Netflix has found when there's more to the relationship than just tactical logistics going back and forth, it really adds more value. Has that been your experience as well? Feel free to share any experiences you've had in the chat. So the three components that Netflix is building their recruiter hiring manager relationships on are freedom, candor, and empathy. And I'll repeat those. Freedom, candor, and empathy. Very simple at a glance, but these qualities can go a long way toward building better partnerships. And as we build strong partnerships, recruiters and sourcers should provide relevant and digestible data, and we should also keep the lines of communication open throughout the entire recruiting process. In my experience, I found that we often end the conversation with a hiring manager too soon, and that's usually right after the meeting formerly known as an intake or a kickoff meeting. We give this impression that we have everything we need to know in an hour and that we're all set to find the right person for the job. But it's really important to continue this conversation through weekly check-ins, sourcing syncs, kind of market updates, what we heard in the chat, bringing them into alignment with what the market can bear, and also with interview pre-briefs and debriefs. Now, in my current role, we conduct something called a refresh meeting. Now, this is a meeting that happens every 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the role. And during this meeting, we revisit the notes from the original kickoff meeting, we track our progress to date, and then we determine what refinements need to be made to the overall search. At a recent refresh meeting with my recruiter, hiring managers, and our coordinator, we discovered that our technical assessment for a certain role was not as targeted as it needed to be. So the engineering team realized that they needed to craft an additional technical assessment to capture the various skill sets needed for this role. We all agreed, and we made this adjustment 6 weeks into the process as opposed to 6 months into it. It was a really eye-opening experience for all of us, and we're slowly transitioning the entire talent acquisition team to adopt this refresh meeting schedule. Are any of you conducting regular refresh meetings or something similar with your hiring partners? I would love to hear how it's working for you in the chat. So as a sourcer, I know that sometimes access to hiring managers can be limited. So when I worked as a technical sourcer at Google, I didn't get access to hiring managers. I just worked directly with my recruiting partners. However, I would keep my eye on the scheduling dashboard, and I would attend hiring committee for my candidates whenever possible. So attending hiring committee, or what you may call an interview debrief, even when you're in listening only mode, can really expose you to priceless learnings and insights. You end up walking away with a much deeper understanding of what's most important to your hiring teams. Now, as we aim to make data-driven decisions with our hiring teams, we need to figure out ways that we can start to share the journey. Have any of you ever taken a road trip with friends or family? Go ahead and pop into chat and share with us your to and from point. So your starting point and your destination. I want to see who's gone on the longest road trip. And I'll give you a few seconds to check the chat. Chicago to California. Wow. Washington to Boston. Wow, that feels like that would be days long. Oh, Seattle to Austin. Good one. Seattle to Baker. Okay, here in Nevada. Vacaville to Valdosta. V to V. Two good cities. Hard to pronounce cities. Talise, you have to tell me how long that was. Seattle to Florida with a dog. Oh my goodness, Mariah, you said it all. So the longest journey I've taken was an 11-hour ride from my hometown of Los Angeles, California, to Humboldt, California, when my younger brother was looking at colleges in the late 90s. 11 hours, and we were still in the same state. Yes. I'm sure those of you on the East Coast are like, really? I could have been through 6 or 7 states by then. So those of you sharing your road trip stories in the chat, keep them coming. You understand that there's no better way to get to know someone and share bonding moments than by being confined in a car with them for 11 hours of your life. And once you're back home and you're telling someone who wasn't with you about all the funny and interesting things you experienced, sometimes those stories just fall flat. And it's like, yeah, you just had to be there. And isn't it the same way with our hiring processes? We can start to better understand our hiring partners' frustrations, and they can start to empathize with ours when we include them in the decision-making discussions at multiple stages along that recruiting journey. Now, hiring managers often view themselves as too busy to be deeply involved in recruiting, and they assume that recruiters have the expertise to go at it alone. But we have to remember that part of your hiring manager's job is to hire and to coach their own team and build it out. Hiring should be neither a burden or a bother. John Flastelica at Recruiting Toolbox says, when you engage managers, you're not passing your work off onto them. You're doing your job as a leader, as a partner, and as a talent advisor. So at every step of the recruiting journey, consider how the hiring manager can start to play a more active role. I like to focus on areas where I've been experiencing pain points. For me, a lot of times that's the resume review stage and getting feedback from those hiring managers. Can you think of some other pain points along the recruiting lifecycle? Feel free to share them in chat as they come to mind. Dan, I have to agree, Humboldt is a different state of mind from LA, and my brother chose not to attend. He went to Cal State San Bernardino. So for example, when we're writing job descriptions, as long as I've been in human resources, job descriptions have been stale. And one way I like to involve my hiring managers is by taking those stale job descriptions, adding them to a Google Doc, and then adding comments. And usually my comments are in the form of questions. And then I'll go ahead and update the job description based on the hiring manager's responses to my questions. Good way to freshen it up. Now notice, I'm not asking the hiring manager to write a brand new job description from scratch, but I'm creating an opportunity for us to collaborate. There's a tool called Diff Checker that compares the difference between 2 text files. So I like to use that to make sure that both versions of that job description have been properly reconciled. What about assessing candidate skills? I've had a lot of success when I take time to develop my phone screening questions alongside the hiring manager. Hands up in the participant panel if you do this as well. You build those phone screening questions together. I think this gets them involved and gives them a little bit more share in that accountability for quality of candidate early in those stages of the recruitment. Good. You're doing that. Good. B. Marie is doing that. I think it was Marie, right? Marie is doing that. Awesome. And one more that I'll mention here is scheduling interviews. So I prefer to discuss upcoming commitments in the initial kickoff meeting, and I call it a look ahead. So we'll pull up the hiring manager's calendar for the next 4 or 5 weeks, and find out if there are any blackout dates. So due to projects, deadlines, scheduled time off, or offsite meetings. Then I'll ask if there's a secondary interviewer that we can add to the hiring plan who can review resumes or screen candidates when the hiring manager is away or otherwise unresponsive. It's also a good time at that point to share your recruiting sourcing expectations and kind of set your own, SLAs for what you will expect throughout that recruitment. Mary, thank you. I'm so sorry, not Marie. Marie is not fine. If it's Mary, it's Mary. I don't like when people call me Marsha instead of Maisha. So thanks for letting me know, Mary. I'm going to write it down so I won't forget. So there are many points along this recruiting life cycle journey that you can start to plot out and decide where it's best to pause and partner. Now, as we leverage data, it's going to be important to share stories and real life examples, not just the numbers. So as you know, there's quantitative or hard data, which tells what happened. And then there's the qualitative or soft data that explains why it happened. So I use a tool called Zen Sourcer to send email campaigns to sourced prospects. And in my biweekly reports, I might share a screenshot of my dashboard, something that looks like this, the quantitative hard data that lets the hiring team know how many messages I've sent and what my response rates look like. But I'll also go on to share some of the more dynamic aspects of the data, some of that qualitative data that pertains to the why. So for example, take a look at these few snippets from prospect replies to my outreach. Okay, this is some of the soft data that explains the why, the reasons that they're not interested or that they can't move forward. Adding these snippets as stories to my reports gives my stakeholders a much deeper understanding of what's happening in this process. And I'm sharing relevant and real examples, but in a digestible format. Another way I like to share the journey is with a technique I call message the manager. So about, I would say 24 to 48 hours after the initial kickoff, I will create a custom email message as if I'm trying to recruit the hiring manager for his or her open position. This gives the hiring manager a glimpse of the type of correspondence that will be sent, and it also gives them a chance to co-create that outreach with me. Here's a response from one of my former hiring managers at GitHub after he checked his personal email and found my sample outreach. Thanks, Cindy. Appreciate that +1. So for those without direct hiring manager access, you can run the messaging by a teammate or invite someone in the role you're sourcing for out to lunch to learn more about what they do. I call this strategy probe the pro. It always adds more color to the job description as well as my kickoff meeting notes. And it helps to give me a 3-dimensional picture of the role. Now, all of this data that you're gathering is going to add value to your front-end sourcing and recruiting activities, like crafting Boolean search strings, conducting those phone screenings. And it'll also add value to the back end as you interact more with your hiring partners. It'll make you much more familiar with the ins and outs of the role. All right, so it's time for our last 60-second share, which means it's time for our final giveaway. Yeah, the crowd's going wild. Hopefully you are too. So here's the last prompt that I'd love to see your response to. And go ahead and hop in chat once you think of your favorite collaboration tool or technique that you've been using with success. All right, I'm gonna start that 60-second timer. All right. And when we wrap up this 60-second share, I will absolutely share my own favorite tool. Yes, Mariah, Calendly and Airtable for the win. Airtable is such a good alternative to Excel. Free tools. These are all free tools, with the exception of LinkedIn Recruiter and Talent Wall. All of these tools are free. So these are really great resources. Yes, thank you, Katrina. Skype and Calendly. Yes, it's so pretty, Mariah. Thank you, Katrina. Skype is a really great way to collaborate. Good. Any more? Is anyone else collaborating with their hiring managers? It could be a tool we've already talked about, or Even one that has already been shared, it's good to affirm those. And oh, good, all on Skype. Good. Thank you, Mary. So while we wrap up those 60-second share suggestions, keep them coming because we'll choose the winner in a moment. I'll share my own. So Google Sheets is one of my favorite collaborative tools. When I'm sourcing, I like to get calibrated on profiles very early in the process as a sourcer. And so this is a screenshot of a Google Sheet that I've used to get calibrated on a vice president of product role that we filled in 6 weeks. So it captures the profile or the resume, feedback from all relevant stakeholders. So my notes as a sourcer, the recruiter, the hiring manager. And it's really a great way to highlight any issues or discrepancies with the alignment on that ideal profile early on. Awesome, thanks, Brooke. So I'm reviewing the chat and I'm going to select the most interesting response to win our last prize, and I'll show you what you've won. So I really like Brooke's insight about LinkedIn and online social networking groups. They can definitely add a lot of value. So Brooke, you are the final winner. You join Mariah and Nathan in the Search Wizards Hall of Fame. Give it up for them. Yes. And thank you to everyone who participated. So big congratulations to the 3 of you. You are officially winning a lovely prize. And to claim your prize, please send an email with your full name and mailing address to me and Dan. You can CC Dan, and my address is here. And by the end of the day, if I get that email from you, I can get your prize out to you this weekend. So here are your options. You get to choose your prize. So option 1, if you're a doodler like me, this is a Purple Squirrel journal you might like. Option 2 is a mouse pad, which is a reminder that your next Purple Squirrel hire is only a click away. And then your third option, number 3 there, is a keychain. So you can always attract Purple Squirrels wherever you go. So take my email. You can take a screenshot or just email me at prizes@maisha.tech. That's not .com, but .tech. And I will get those prizes out to you. Thanks, Katrina. I'm glad you like it. And thanks for participating. You could probably use it as a beer bottle opener too, Dan. I like the way you're thinking. That's a sourcer mindset. You try to find as many uses for something as possible. So thanks to everyone for participating. Come on, wake up and congratulate your colleagues. Yes. And if you didn't win, hang tight because we still have that data swag bag coming and you will not want to miss it. The last data swag bag that I gave away had over 200 clicks and shares. So lots of good information packed in there, and it's coming up for you momentarily. So as we close out this section on collaborative decision-making, here are some tools that'll make it easier to collaborate with your hiring partners. I'm sure you're familiar with most of these, so I'll kind of breeze through these tools. AppearIn is a free tool, and it's an alternative to Zoom. So, if Zoom's not working for you, Google Hangouts not working for you, AppearIn is a good backup. You can also use Asana or Trello for project management across teams. And of course, we're all familiar with Google Suite. Some of you are probably using Outlook, so Office 365 would be the compatible alternative. So one thing that came up in the pre-survey was that it would be nice to get market insights outside of what you can pull from LinkedIn. So as a bonus, I've compiled a list with 30 places you can find data online for free. Special shouts out to the search wizards on the line that completed the pre-survey. The small but mighty number of you are the reason that the team has this additional resource. So definitely thank you. You know who you are. So here are a few tools that are going to be on that PDF that I've added in your swag bag. You'll get tools like Data USA, Owler, which is great to provide real-time news alerts and company insights. And then there's also Lumascape. I'm sure you've seen these infographics floating around the web. Lumascape produces these for a variety of industries. And this is really great if you're sourcing and you want to, source competitors or just kind of look for key companies in your particular area. So the tools that I've shared today are by no means exhaustive. And I want to share with you a quick search hack that will allow you to find more tools like the ones I've shared with you today. So say you demoed a tool and it's just not right for you. You can go to Google search and type related : and the name of the website that you're looking for alternatives for. So in this example, I'm looking for alternatives to Dropbox.com. Again, that's related : and then the name of the website, no spaces. And once you hit enter, Google will give you a list of similar sites. So here we have 48 alternatives to Dropbox, including SugarSync and Evernote. Now you can use this hack in a variety of ways, even when you're sourcing. So maybe for professional organizations or diversity orgs or schools, so many ways you can apply your practical creativity to this hack. So I hope you find it useful. If this is a useful hack for you, let me know in the chat or in the participant panel. And also, if you're using this related search operator in another way, feel free to share that in the chat as well. We can all benefit from those other creative ideas. So let's recap what we've discussed in the past 48 minutes. We started by addressing the disconnect between recruiters and hiring managers. And then we discussed ways that we can start to perfect the delivery of data. Finally, we focused on collaborative decision-making throughout the recruiting process. Now, before I go, I want to leave you with this challenge. Think of the one hiring manager that you're having the least success with, and identify one area, either the disconnect, the delivery, or the decision-making that you can improve. So maybe your hiring manager relationships are solid, but you've been delivering data in the same way with these massive Excel spreadsheets. It could be a good time to refresh that approach. Or perhaps you're already delivering digestible data, but you're making all of your decisions in a sourcing or recruiting silo. It may be a good time to pause and partner and start to collaborate more closely to share that journey with your hiring partners. If you accept this challenge, type "I'm in" into the chat or give me a thumbs up. Big thumbs up, as my 3-year-old niece likes to say. Big thumbs up. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Larry. I'm glad you're with me. Thanks, Mariah. Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. And Cindy's in and Talisa's in. Awesome. So here is your data swag bag. You can take a screenshot of the slide or just write down the link. It's a bit.ly, very simple to remember, SW for Search Wizards, and then data swag bag all together. And at this link, you'll find the clickable PDF that contains the complete slide deck, all the resources I've referenced, and a special GDPR related resource that people on the pre-survey were curious about. So this link will be active for the next 30 days, and it's my gift to you for being present and engaged this morning. So download and enjoy. So we'll end with the same quote that we started with. This was clearly from a person who was not working with thoughtful, informed, and data-driven hiring partners. So hopefully, one day, this CTO will have the privilege to partner with recruiters and sourcers who understand the disconnect, who strive to perfect the delivery of data, and who are eager to collaborate on decision-making. I wish you great success as you endeavor to deliver impactful insights, always keeping in mind the golden rule of building strong partnerships. People first, data second. Have a fantastic afternoon, Search Wizards. Feel free to get connected on social, and it's been a real pleasure. Enjoy your day.